Did you hear anything about Cat Williams?
Who's Cat Williams?
My God. He's a comedian.
I don't know who that is. Do they do like movies too, or this like a stand-up? Oh yeah, I don't know.
Man, maybe we're too white. I don't know. Have you seen Soul Plane?
Probably. If I say yes, will you be less disappointed right now?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, anyway, Cat Williams is like a legendary comedian. It's hella funny, and he went on this podcast and called out, I don't know, a bunch of other comedians in like the Hollywood industry in general.
Should I just like look up a little video of this real quick?
Yeah.
Since I have no concept.
Well, it was long. It was like went on for like almost 3 hours, and
this so cat with a C with a K?
Katt Williams.
Okay.
Cat Williams.
Cat Williams.
He's legendary.
Well, I have that. What should I be looking for specifically? Interview?
It's just like Cat Williams interview, and Cat Williams calls out comedians. Or I'm trying to summarize what happened real quick for you.
Let me see. What if I just do calls out comedians? Or I have calls out Kevin Hart.
Yeah, dude, he called out hella people.
How about I watched the Kevin Hart one? I'm like, because I don't know. That's what's popping up right now.
That
so this
one,
we got like a little short.
That one wasn't so juicy.
Is there one that's better?
He said Kevin Hart wasn't that talented, and he was almost like an industry plant. Williams.
Looks like it actually is Evans
Sharp. Ricky Sager told you that they cut him out of every movie he did. They always had a reason. Like
Williams went in on a few people, including Ricky Smiley, Cedric the Entertainer, Steve Harvey, Kevin Hart, and Joe Rogan. Williams left no stones unturned during the conversation, accusing some comics of not being talented and even alleging Cedric the Entertainer or accusing him of stealing his jokes. Was this too far, or
it's so funny to hear the newsman.
Joining us to talk about it, our own
news report on it.
The Factor Uncensored.
Accuse other comedians of not being talented.
Yeah. I mean, how do you report that on the news? Because this is like Fox News, and he's just trying to like talk about it. I don't know.
That was even more funny.
That's pretty funny.
But yeah, so there's a little bit of back and forth on the internet of, is Cat Williams full of shit, or is everything he's saying true? And I think most people are saying like he's true. It's true.
Maybe he's just saying what other people don't want to openly come out about.
He's not afraid to call it out and be like, dude, you ain't funny. You didn't do that. A, B, C, and D, and E, and F. He had the receipt. So it was kind of interesting. It was definitely entertaining. I didn't even know half the shit they were talking about, but I was like, yeah, you go. You tell him.
But you know what? Something like that too, this is an opportunity for him to advance his publicity, because even bad publicity
perfect timing, because he's got tours and stuff too.
So maybe there's some timing to it. Maybe he's being controversial because he knows that's going to kind of make a little bit of name for himself.
Right, but he never goes on podcasts.
Interesting.
So this was like his once in a blue moon. I wanted to.
Yeah, I also hardly ever go on a podcast.
Damn. Shots fired.
Called out. Let me pull up.
Welcome back to episode 29. Wait.
I don't even know where we are. So 21? I think it's 21. Here we go.
58.
69?
69.
Oh. This is interesting because we were just talking with your stepdad about space stuff. So this is kind of like some interesting space stuff about dark matter. So this star is not orbiting anything.
Orbiting nothing. Well, Kinda. Astronomers had previously thought that this star
I want to make videos like this.
black hole, but now some
That's what I
astronomers
assumed a black
believe
hole.
it might
Maybe it's
actually be orbiting a never-before-seen type of star, completely made out of dark
matter star.
Dark matter
I haven't
is
heard this one yet.
invisible form of matter that makes up most of the matter inside galaxies. We still have no way to detect dark matter itself, but
Let's say,
some
is dark
theoretical
matter
modelings
theoretical?
would allow for dark matter particles
Yeah.
to clump together, forming a dark
Matter star.
These stars
Okay,
would be
it's phrasing.
A
entirely
dark
invisible.
matter star. Some scientists, dude, I love it.
I know, especially with the British accent.
I love it. I'm gonna subscribe to that fucking channel.
I thought that was so fascinating when I came across that, because instantly my mind goes to, well, maybe it's some sort of black hole. If there's no light from like a star that it's orbiting, then how do you see a black hole? The answer is we can't yet. We don't have the technology to see a black hole. What we see is a black hole moving around other objects or distorting
the distortion that it causes,
trying to come through it.
and light distortion.
That's what we see. But in this case, it
But I
looks
don't
like
think we know.
they're calculating, I assume they're physics, that we know it's not a black hole. So that's why I think now it's speculating, okay, there's no light, it's not a black hole, maybe it's some sort of dark matter clump of gravitational pull, like a black matter star, dark matter star.
I was just out of the blue, like I was sitting on the couch thinking about black holes. I'm like, what the fuck is on the backside of it? Like, do we have any info? So I start researching.
Well, some people assume maybe it's a white hole. Some people think maybe it just gets crushed up and it just kind of gets shot out,
a
broken up.
possibility. It's a way to get into another universe.
Yeah, like a
So the
white
only,
hole.
I guess, the only physical issue would be spaghettification.
Uh-huh.
Like if you get stretched out into a string of fucking atoms, how do you get put back together?
Now, the only thing
But
I would question on that is,
I think
There's-
it was a procreation thing. So all these atoms from this universe just get shredded apart into bare atoms, spit out into a new naked virgin universe, and a new universe is created from all of our
interesting.
byproduct.
Because that to me kind of sounds like similar to the concept of a black hole and a white hole, right? The concept of you can use a black hole as a wormhole to get somewhere else. The problem is we've
There's
never
so many dirty jokes.
We've never had an instance where we found a white hole. We've never seen that something comes back out. So that's why it's
What
kind
would
of
you call a white hole?
a white hole would be where that's going out. It is really easy to make something out of it, isn't it? Okay, grow up. Come on. So think of it this way. What you're saying. So instead of going
is within the black hole.
So instead
Or
of
they're
going to
separate?
an alternative dimension, imagine, where does the black hole go here? Like, we're not saying it goes to another dimension. Let's say it stays here in our dimension. It goes to some other part of the universe. The problem with that theory is that we have never discovered the opposite of a white hole, a black hole, which would be a white hole. There's no exit point. We have never found evidence,
what the white
because
hole
you would
is.
see that. You would see particles getting dumped out in a trail, just like you see
Right.
particles getting sucked in.
But then
by the black
isn't there
hole.
a constraint on physics? Things can only get condensed so far. Right?
Yes, but still, to the point is, if
Like, what happens to all that shit that goes in the black hole?
if something goes in the black, well, I think that's where the speculation is more so that it's probably actually getting sucked up, crushed, and then it's kind of just getting let go. Think of it like the black hole is just kind of taking a dump.
In
it's
the
just
same
kinda,
space?
It's just kind of letting all these particles, as it's moving, I think it's sort of just letting all the particles.
It's just
That's
shitting
one
out
theory.
cosmic dust.
That's one theory. That it's basically breaking apart
Okay.
all of it into just basically atoms again, and all those atoms are just kind of getting left behind.
Oh, maybe it's non-visible because it's just badass atoms.
Yes. So that's
and they're just spit out. And
that's
back
one of the
into
things
universe.
too, is it's like, okay, well, if we can't prove that there's a white hole, then how are you going to prove that it's going into a different dimension? Because that would still also just be a white hole in a different dimension. It's the same concept, but now instead of moving you through space, it's moving you through dimensions.
So what happened in Interstellar? Do you remember? Didn't he go through a black hole? And then, okay, wait. Do you remember Interstellar?
Yeah, he goes,
because there's a lot.
Does he go
that I
through
don't
a black hole?
Understand? I can't remember.
He uses
if
it.
There was intelligent
He uses
beings.
it to travel through space, though, right? He's using that as like what I'm talking about, like a wormhole.
He went into the 4th or 5th dimension or something.
He does go into another dimension, doesn't he? I don't know. To be honest, I feel like I watched it and I thought, wow, what a crazy movie. And I like
we're experiencing
maybe didn't
4
process
dimensions right now.
everything.
Right? So he did the 5th, and that was the ability to bend time and space.
Yeah.
But I'm like, how did he even access? I think he accessed the 5th dimension through the black hole.
Yes.
And then it was like blurring the past
Weird.
and the future.
Yeah.
Dude, I don't even know.
Yeah, because he's interacting like with his daughter
through the books.
Yes. Weird.
But
I don't know.
That he was older when he did that. It's like super weird.
And there was so much real physics that went into the research for that movie.
I love that movie.
It's like actually super scientifically accurate.
It's a great
current conception of physics on
when he's all watching the videos for his daughter, because every hour is like 10 years on Earth, right? So they get back in the ship when they're on that water planet, and he's watching the videos of his daughter, and it's been like 10 years, and he's like, you know, I'm like,
oh yeah, no, because then at the end of the movie, he comes back, his daughter's like on her deathbed,
yeah,
and it's kind of like he's in there, and she has her whole
it's been
family.
like a couple days for him,
and he's just the weirdo that's coming in the room, and she's like the only one who even knows who he is.
Yeah,
that'd be sad. The other thing that was interesting about that movie to me was when they were trying to like change history, right? They're like, oh, well, it's not in the textbook that happened. He's like, it happened though. Like,
what movie?
In Interstellar.
Wait, what?
Because they're basically trying to change history. The daughter's going to school and is like arguing with the teacher about what we've done in space, what we've done in the past with going to space and stuff like that, and our level of technology. And the teacher's like, no, that didn't happen. And even he's arguing like, yes, it did. Like all this stuff has happened. Like we've gone to space, we've gone to the moon, we've done this and that. And the teacher's like, well, it's not in the textbook.
I don't even remember that part. Damn.
Right? That's such like a minor part of the movie. But to me, that really stuck because, I mean, it's kind of like, not to get too political, what's going on right now in the South, though. They're trying to rewrite history a little bit. They're looking at, well, is Anne Frank okay to have in schools? Is it okay to have dictionaries in school? Dictionaries. They're thinking about banning dictionaries because it defines sex.
Anne Frank?
Yeah.
I read that when I was like 12. Dude, get old.
I know.
What?
And then
it's not that influential.
Some of the schools in the South are rewriting the concept around slavery. And it's like, well, they weren't really slaves. Like, they wanted to come here and work for all the white people on the cotton farms. And it's like, guys, why do you need to rewrite history? Like, what?
No, there was other slave owners in Sierra Leone and in whatever Liberia was back then.
Yeah, and they were the ones that were selling it. And you know, in fact,
they made long lines of black people who did not want to be standing in those lines.
You know what I found out from my history classes in college? Because I was learning Latin American history. But in order to understand Latin America, you have to understand Europe, Asia, and Africa.
Everything's connected.
They gave us the men because the women were more valuable as slaves. In African society, you want the women as slaves.
Because they can do more with their hands. They're more
procreate.
They're also just
procreation. There's
obviously.
Also just the aspect.
But they're probably
of
more artistic, more organized.
But think about like if you're thinking from like a more tribal aspect, you're going to see the mother goddess figure. So there's this just holy reverence in an aspect too. Whereas the men, it's like, when it have fun on that boat.
Only thing men ever did was like physical labor.
And I think that's why it was such a good.
Women did all the other
for us
important shit.
Everyone in the Americas, you know, Latin America, we wanted the men to do manual labor. Mm-hmm. We didn't want the women. Yes, maybe for some level of procreation, but that wasn't the problem. We needed the manual labor done.
We just were working off of instinct, and that goes to our biological limitations. And so the men were bigger, ruder, stronger. Yeah, you fucker, go hunt. We're going to build baskets and organize everything. Yeah. It's pretty obvious how it had to go.
So, speaking of big and brutish people, look at these skeletons. It's some of the largest skeletons that we've ever found.
Dude, I love this kind of shit. I watch YouTube videos about them digging up bones
So let me read it.
of what
These-
could have been giants.
These skeleton figures represent just a few giant human
Gigantism.
remains. So you can look at, present day man, and then it's kind of going through.
Oh, we were tiny back, like Romans,
Yeah.
because
Well,
now we
historically,
have
people in general were much.
we have an
shorter, yeah.
abundance of nutrition.
So that way people
but
grow.
now
in
we
there.
have fortified foods. We've got growth hormones, all this other
Yeah,
shit.
which almost makes you taller.
So everybody's 7 foot tall now, but we used to be 4 feet tall.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's the thing too, right? It's like you think of Napoleon as being short, this whole Napoleon complex.
but
Napoleon wasn't even
gigantism.
that short for his day and age, actually.
This is like a certain genetic trait, gigantism.
Mhm.
An earthquake and what? Uncovered one more. Oh. Wow.
And I'm sure these are all being displayed right now. so
Holy
everyone can
crap.
see. Some of them are giant, though. Mammoth, man. They're just big.
36 feet?
Now, my thing is,
What?
I actually kind of doubt some of these, though. I have to be a little skeptical.
36 feet is kind of too much. I'll
Because-
believe
I don't know that there's
12.
any proper,
20.
archaeologists or anthropologists that have come to the table with finds like these. Someone with like credible.
And they're not the same species as us, They're a different kind of Homo sapien. or
Oh yeah, you go
whatever.
far
So-
enough back, you have hominids, right? Because
Right.
you could have like Homo erectus or the Neanderthals or even those pre-ones, the ones before all those. So who knows with some of those? But I'm also just thinking some of this could
God,
literally
I
just
took
be
a class on that shit, and
some of this could literally just be the internet just making up shit. I mean, if we're just being completely honest.
some of it could be, but whatever I saw before said there was somebody who was like 15 or 20 feet tall that they found bones in like Ireland or something. Oh, in America, there was native peoples that were like
oh yeah, I saw those.
15 feet
I did
tall
see
or
those.
something. But 36 feet,
And those ones we actually had photos from because we had early cameras
that's ridiculous. That's a whole other species
or just fake.
or fake.
Because
Like,
that's almost my thing too. I'm like, you can put whatever you want on the internet and then spread it around on social media.
it's like, okay, were there dragons too? Like,
okay, listen, and I'm not saying there was, but actually, weird, like
I think there was.
drunk conversation I had with a lot of my friends at this like party one time, and we were talking about every culture in the
They
world
all have depictions.
independently came up with the concept of a dragon.
Exactly.
They weren't all fire breathing. In fact, if you think China, they were smart. They were knowledge and philosophy, and they could speak sometimes, right? If you're looking at the ones out of like Polynesia, they were more like serpents,
right.
and they dealt with water. But it didn't
I
matter.
think there were giant.
It didn't matter.
Serpents.
It's like no
Maybe
matter
some of
what,
them
every culture had
could
dragons.
fly. Maybe some of them didn't. But I think it. Each civilization or society made it a point to like, we need to kill that fucking beast and bring peace to the land.
Yeah.
And whoever kills that beast will be given all the gold and all the bitches.
Yeah. You know what I almost wonder though with some of that fairy tale stuff, because mind you, it's all ye old, and maybe you have like mermaids or sprites, elves, whatever, right? Dragons being included in that. Is I'm wondering if maybe talking about alternative dimensions, maybe there is an alternative dimension out there which is like ye old, or at least maybe more that historically at that point in time was ye old, and people were just accessing it.
I've heard.
Maybe through dreams, maybe through visions, maybe, I don't know. Their soul was in another dimension
that's a whole
and jumped
other
over here.
subset of that conversation, definitely. But I was
Because
thinking
my thing
of
would be clearly we have
literally,
never found
we killed them
archaeological evidence. We've
There's
never
no
found
archaeology-
archaeological evidence to support that.
right.
So maybe there is. I'm not saying that's not true. We still find like, oh my God, like we didn't know this was here under the ocean, or
But
this
you'd
is here in
think
Antarctica or
We'd
under
have
the
been
ground.
proud enough. Like that skull would be in the fucking castle.
So that's
know?
where I'm like, maybe alternatively, there is possibly an alternative dimension in which dragons and mermaids and stuff like that exist, and we're just sometimes accessing, maybe like our soul had been there in memory, or like you go to sleep and you're able to astral project over there, or whatever it is, some sort of weird dimensional crossover, and we're just like getting images or concepts from over there.
I also think there's an aspect of storytelling and exaggeration.
Definitely.
Because Grandpa wants to impress the grandson.
Yeah.
They're gathered around the campfire, and Grandpa's like, instead of a 6-foot lizard creature, now it's a 20-foot lizard creature. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, all of a sudden,
not everywhere in the world
it breathes fire.
Not everywhere in the world has lizards, but yet you have humans everywhere in the world coming up with the concept of it.
Right.
I think that's where it's weird. And this isn't like everything else, right? There isn't a concept of mermaids in every society, but there is of a dragon. Like, what is it about certain things that it's like there is this cultural crossover no matter what? Cultures that didn't have writing, cultures that don't have a certain animal or certain plants or historical relations.
Be bogus just for the sake of the story and the inspiration of like every little kid needs that bedtime story of there's a hero and fight your demons and be a protagonist.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. So every culture has bullshit stories.
Yeah. That's what fairy tales are and folklore.
Along with the real ones. So there's both.
And it kind of gets mixed in there.
And they get blurred together. You know, I don't know.
Oh, you know, one that's interesting.
Very interesting.
Is all of the Viking sagas where like they came over to the Americas and stuff. Because you have the Vinland sagas and they actually came over to Canada and everyone for the longest time just thought that was a bunch of just like bullshit storytelling until they were like, oh, there's a bunch of archaeological
Newfoundland
of the Vikings being over here and stuff.
Leif Erikson and shit.
And it's like up until then, like no one believed it until all of a sudden, and now it's just fact. No one's questioning that anymore, and it's actually not a big deal. The big one
I think it makes sense too. They've studied like the wind patterns and if you were to travel on a chintzy little boat, take off from Norway, you're going to end up in Canada.
Yeah. The big one that they've been looking at now is if the was like the Christian Brotherhood, but really it was the Knights Templar. It's like what they became. I think it was they turned into the Christian Brotherhood after the Crusades because they got like persecuted and all went to Portugal. Anyway, they came over here as like the Christian Brotherhood, the Knights Templar, and like
they came to America that way.
Maybe started hiding all their treasures over here. And that's where there's that whole Oak Island TV show. But they think they also went to Canada and even into the United States.
That in Indiana Jones.
Oh yeah, the Ark of the Covenant or the Ark of the Covenant or whatever.
But I think they were talking about hide your shit in America.
I think that was
take it to
the Ark of the
Virginia.
Covenant. The Ark of the Covenant, because what supposedly happened is the Knights Templar went over to Jerusalem when the Byzantine Empire was getting its ass kicked by the Arabs, and they said, "Hey, can you help us? Like we're both Christian." They go over. Yeah. And they come across the Ark of the Covenant, which, mind you, just held the Torah. So we're talking Jewish history right there, because Jerusalem was like the capital.
What does it look like, the Ark of the Covenant?
I mean, if you read the Torah, it kind of describes it. It's supposed to be like this gold like thing, and it actually has like these handles on it, like I think like wood handles to like hold the actual chest, and inside the chest is like God's book, the Torah.
Sick.
And they supposedly stole it when they were ransacking everything. And
you know what I really wanted to do with my life when I was a child? Until
like in Indiana Jones?
Yes.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me when I was a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? Archaeologist. Like that.
There you go.
I was like paleontologist or an archaeologist. And they were like,
oh, Jurassic Park?
Oh, you want to dig up dinosaur bones and be like Indiana Jones? I was like, yes. Don't patronize me, bitch. Yes.
I actually thought about it when
That's exactly what I want to do.
When I first got to college, I was like, what can I do with a history degree, right? Like, I'm probably not going to do anything with a history degree, but what can I do that's history, right? And then that's where I came across, and I was like, maybe be an archaeologist. And then I took like 2 or 3 classes and realized this isn't for me.
Yeah.
But that's okay. I think I was also turned off by it because specifically the University of New Mexico is very much so.
I think those programs move slow.
History is kind of a waste of your time. Right. What's really important is looking at pottery shards inside of a basement for the rest of your life. And I was like, what?
You have no idea what's out there.
Who finds this interesting?
Give me that fucking shovel right now.
Like, props to whoever can sit inside of a dark room in a basement, like looking at pottery shards all day. Someone has to do it. You're doing the fucking Lord's work.
It's cut out for that, but not people like you and me.
But like, I want to go out and explore. And realistically, because I like history, I want to look at the historical record with archaeology, put them together,
I think it's a funding
and get a fuller story
issue and a
And it's like historians have no problem.
intellectual issue. People have competing beliefs.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's also like this weird like narcissist like it's all about us, but it's also like a pretentious like we're better than. And it's weird because like anthropologists can be like that and archaeologists can be like that. But historians I find are actually much better about like, oh, what did anthropologists find over here? What did geologists find over here? What are paleontologists looking at over here? And what are archaeologists finding? And how do we put all of that, maybe even climatology? How do we combine everything together with the written record to actually form history? So that's why I was like, at the end of the day, I'm never going to do anything with a history degree. But that's more interesting to me because it takes everything. I remember an archaeology major friend of mine literally was like, I don't get why you study history. Like, you learn stuff like mythology and stuff. What do you get from that? And I was like, more than you're probably going to get from just looking at a bunch of bones and old buildings. I was like, if you don't have any context for it, it doesn't help you. But if you look at the image and you realize, oh, that's Zeus, and Zeus was the god of this, and it relates to this culture, and it influenced this one, you have a whole story.
Don't you want to just know like what happened here?
Yeah. And it's like in her mind, she just wanted the science. I just wanted to just look at what's out there and not have any context.
You're just here now. Let me analyze everything that's right in front of me. But it's like, what's the context?
Because that's the story to me. That's what I like.
Where did all this shit come from?
Yeah.
You know?
And where does it
like
go?
When I went to Europe, when I went to Italy for the first time, even as a 9-year-old kid, I could be like, holy shit. Everything here is like 2,000 years old. This is crazy. Yeah. Like there's so many stories here.
Let me show you this. So it's phantom time theory or something like that. Okay, it's basically, so give us a synopsis, yeah.
The phantom time conspiracy theory claims that the time period from 614 to 911 never existed. Dun, dun, dun. This theory asserts that these additional 300 years of history were fabricated during the Middle Ages to legitimize Otto's claim over the Holy Roman Empire. According to this theory, we should be living in the year 1726.
Isn't that weird? Isn't that bizarre?
So how do you fabricate 300 years of history and then who all fell for it and said, oh yeah, sure, it's the year such and such?
Well, okay, so...
Like, how would that work out?
Yeah, right. So here's my problem.
You have to fool the whole world?
Here's my problem with it.
What?
So the period from 614 to 911, well, yes, the Roman Empire fell, but the Eastern Byzantine Roman Empire did not fall. And currently I'm listening to that series on a podcast, and literally they have a written record that never ends. So it's not like they got affected by this. But my even bigger,
still going.
But even my bigger argument, because maybe there's really this big conspiracy theory, and they went and changed like fucking Roman records or whatever. So Western history is all fucked. Eventually, we took over Africa, we took over North America, South America, the Polynesians, and just told them this is the year. Right? They didn't really have much of a written record. They did in some places, but for argument's sake, let's just say we got rid of it, and a lot of them didn't have a calendar, and we just told them this is the current year. And the year of our Lord. So they, like, we can't go for that. My biggest argument here.
Maybe.
China. Japan. Korea.
They were organized as
They had their own calendar systems. Yeah. India was super on top of their records. Huh. They were super advanced in a lot of ways and came up with a lot of concepts before the West. You cannot tell me that some of these bigger civilizations in the East somehow had their this conspiracy put on them.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You would have had to fool the whole world.
Because I'm like, it's one thing to say like colonialism, we took it like all over Africa and the Americas and Polynesia, whatever, right? Okay, maybe.
Well, there's like, China is adamant that their culture is one of the oldest. And there's like, I don't know, 4,000 or 6,000 year old texts from China. 9,000.
I was going to say older.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think
9,000.
Because writing, I think, started 3000 BCE, I want to say, somewhere around there. That's when written history, because history is actually referring to written. That's when history started.
Fuck, I took it.
So I think China's at least that old, if not older.
I forgot.
Anyway, everything. So my point is, that's complete bullshit. I do not believe that that's possibly real. Because I'm like, the only people that would believe that would be not just Europe, Western Europe. Because Eastern Europe was doing its own thing.
Sure.
They had the Vikings, they had the Slavs, they had the Byzantines, and they had Arabic influence.
Byzantine. What was the Arabics at that time?
Oh, the Arabics were super advanced. That was their golden age. Was right around that time.
The Ottomans?
The Ottomans weren't around yet, but that
before
was that. Yeah. So that would have been right after Muhammad started
the prophet
creating Islam as we think of it today, and jihad and conquering and expanding and bringing Islam to everyone else. So during that time, they actually had their golden age right towards the end of that period of time. So you really can't say that like the whole world had this whole thing just thrown over them. Like what? Like everyone had their own written records. That's so stupid. Western Europe maybe could have been influenced by that, but no one else. And don't get me wrong.
No.
Eastern Europe has a different calendar dating system. They still go off of the Julian, as in like Julius Caesar dating system. And then there's the Gregorian, but they're off by like, I don't know, 7 days or something, 17 days. It's like a couple days. Might even be that much. We're talking days, not years. So how are you going to tell me that they're years apart? That doesn't make sense. That's where I'm like with the Giants thing. I'm like, I think people can kind of just put whatever they want online. And then you're going to get people that are like, oh my God, this makes so much sense. Like, we're not in 2024. We're only in like 1724. What? No, okay.
There's this guy on Joe Rogan talking about bones in Alaska. Have you heard about that?
Bones in Alaska? No.
This guy has a boneyard in Alaska, and so basically he brings to light that there's like a lot of headbutting and disagreements in the scientific community, like a lot, and to where there's like I don't know, tomfoolery about weird shit goes on. So like a museum or a scientific community like the Smithsonian will just deny and be like, no, fuck that shit's not true, we're not taking that artifact. And it's almost like they have their own agendas for history, you know.
It's unfortunate. It does happen though.
And then there's other cases of material just being like dumped into the river and shit like that. So much history has just been juggled around, fucking thrown away. And it's all about storytelling.
Yeah.
It's like, who the fuck knows what happened? It's crazy.
Weird.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, history's written by the victors, right? So anytime someone
written by the victors
takes over, they're going to throw everything. That was such a big thing for Mayan history as I was studying it. You'd have like one emperor, king in control, and then the next one would take over, and they would throw away everything. They'd like destroy all the carvings, and then they'd start over and write their own history. Wow. And it's just like, stop. Like, preserve the history. You know?
I just, when you said that, I pictured like Doctor Strange. He does his little whole thing, and it's white people looking into the past. We're like looking at a pyramid in the Mayan jungle. Like, stop. We want to study your history later. Stop.
Stop.
And they're looking out through the circle like,
yeah, probably. Oh God, did you see the new Indiana Jones movie?
Like half of it.
Joe, you didn't see the epic Greek fight
at the end?
Yeah, because it's like the Battle of Syracuse.
Leave me here, and they're like, "Shut the fuck up, we're taking you back."
Because you have Archimedes, and there's the supposed like legend where he like used a bunch of shields.
That was like the climax of the movie, right?
To like destroy all the ships.
They went back,
and then you have the freaking World War II plane, and they're like, "Let's shoot like a javelin at it," like right,
and it was working. They were fucking it up. It crashed.
I know.
But then Indy was like, just leave me here. And they're like, snap out of it, Indy, you're coming back.
I'm just literally the whole time I'm questioning this though, because I'm like, so did no archaeologists come across a bunch of Nazis in World War II?
A fucking plane.
Like snuffing guns and like the BC period of Syracuse? Like no one found this? Okay, that's fine.
What about the 50 cals? You didn't dig those up? Like,
yeah, clearly not. I don't know. I would say Archimedes was like, you know what? I'll just like make sure to destroy it, but he actually gets killed at the end of the Battle of Syracuse. So.
Really?
Yeah, the Roman general that was conquering it literally told all of his people, he said, like, bring him back alive. Like, do not kill this guy. Because he could see how smart he was. And, like, if anything, let's capture him and, like, let's have him invent stuff for Rome. And, I don't know, one of his guys got a little tough with him and killed him.
Oh, Archimedes was Greek. So that was a Greek-Roman conflict?
Yeah.
So who was attacking who?
The Romans were trying to conquer the Greeks right there.
Wow.
Well, specifically, this people at Syracuse.
And so at that point, didn't the strength of the Roman Empire come after, like, the peak of the Greek?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the Greeks weren't as strong at that point, and they did get conquered, right?
Yeah, because that was after. At that point, I think we're thinking more Roman Republic. This isn't even Roman Empire. This is Roman Republic. Because mind you,
Republic.
I believe Archimedes was before even Alexander the Great. Like, there wasn't even the Greek Empire.
Archimedes, isn't that Troy? Troy and Helen?
No. You're thinking
Agamemnon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and that's way old. That's Bronze Age.
That's
Greece. That's super,
school.
super old. And what's interesting?
That's just Greek.
What's interesting there is you had the Bronze Age collapse, which you can read more about in the book 1177. It's actually very fascinating. But the Greeks, we don't have history because it's the Dark Ages, but the Spartans actually had a renaissance at that time. So they were getting all artsy. They weren't fighting people. But we still don't have records. We just have lots of pottery. And
wait, so during the larger Dark Ages of Greece as a whole.
We could call it the ancient Dark Ages, yeah.
Oh, just ancient Dark Ages. Sparta was flourishing during that time?
They were doing so
on
good.
Its own?
Yeah.
What?
So at that time, you had the
That's cool.
Ionian Greeks and you had the Dorian Greeks. The Ionian Greeks were the ones that did the whole battle of Troy and all that. Okay. And then all of a sudden, you have these new people coming in called the Dorian Greeks, and they started taking over Greece, and they all got pushed. All the Ionians got pushed into Athens, which became the center of culture, philosophy,
so
innovation.
Got pushed out of their land?
And they got pushed out because it's like as the Ionians are getting pushed out by the Dorians into Athens, Athens gets overclumped and they have to leave.
Pack up
which
your
is
shit,
why
move that
they end
way?
up by the Persian Empire, which leads to the whole Persian Wars. They end up going to Syracuse and they end up going to all these other places, which is why the Romans had these little battles here and there. Right?
So how does that work? Is it like Lord of the Rings where it's just like they come, they burn your village, and it's like, all right, get to walking?
I think a lot of it was probably more conquering, but we don't have written records at that time. It was that Dark Age, so we really.
But you said people were getting pushed into Athens.
Yeah, because I think of it
they
this
were
way.
Getting
think
removed.
of it like when the Romans went to England. What happened is you had all the Brits, the native people, get pushed into Wales. Because I think it's all of a sudden you have this new population coming.
But I mean, what's pushing them?
The new population. They're literally taking over your house, basically. I don't think it's about they're enslaving you or they're trying to kill you or even conquer you. I think it's kind of like, hey, we're moving in. You can either join us or you can move. Get the fuck out.
So they had the free will almost to be like,
I think
I'm going to go to the city.
That's my speculation. So I think that they were like kind of getting clumped in together and they all kind of end up going to Athens.
I pictured it was more like a fucking, what's it called? When you burn everything behind you. Scorched earth.
Oh.
So
no, probably not that much actually, because I think they just wanted to kind of take over what was there. I think that it's like, well, if they already have farms, like why?
So this is our city now. You work for us.
Yeah,
you can walk to Athens if you want.
Because I think the alternative is you're going to enslave everyone. Is your arm okay? You like hit the fire right there.
I burn a hole in my jacket.
Yeah. So not to get too bogged down in a history lesson here, they all leave. They end up there, and that's why you have these Greeks over here in like Sicily and Syracuse. And then as the Roman Republic turning into empire is expanding, they're able to kind of take it over. And Greece was never really centralized. The only period of time that was centralized was around 333 when Alexander the Great had gone out and conquered everything. He conquered Athens, Sparta, Thebes. He went all the way through the Persian Empire, over to Egypt, over into India, and really united it all together. And then as soon as he died, his generals took over. His son became the king over in one part. But his son was really young, so he didn't get to be like the king of everything. He just specifically was back in Greece. So they were all super divided. It was constantly just, they were these city-states. Wow. So instead of thinking of it as one large group of the Greeks fighting the Romans, it was really more like,
let's say, what do you think would have happened if Alexander the Great held it for 20 years? had a son. The son held it for 20 years, so on and so forth. Like, what could the world
Well, like,
look
you think if they would have been able to even rival the Romans?
Right.
To be honest, I don't think so.
So once the Romans appeared, Alexander Empire would have been toast?
I think they would have stood a better chance. And I think the Romans would have been less likely to engage. But my concern is, I don't think the Greeks had the technology and the force to be able to stand up. Don't get me wrong, I mean, the Greeks were advanced.
Good technology.
They were really good with a lot of concepts and philosophy and thought, but that's kind of what it was. They were the philosophical people.
Right.
The Romans are the warriors. They're engineers. Listen to me that.
They were engineers, right?
They're the ones that could build a road, build a bridge. They're going to conquer whatever they need to do. Like they came across that city of Tyre, and they literally built a man-made bridge and crossed it to conquer that city. Mm-hmm. And it is actually still there to this day. There is still a man-made bridge connecting Tyre to the mainland.
Wow.
So I think eventually they would have taken the Greeks, no matter what.
Imagine being on the island every day, just like, oh, fuck, dude, they're getting closer. Yep. They put more planks down.
Yep. But if you think about it too, I mean, it wasn't like it all happened at once because it was so divided. In fact, it actually helped the Greeks in many ways because they never conquered what we think of as the Persian Empire, because it was the Persians, and then the Alexander the Great conquered it, became the Seleucid Empire, and then the Seleucid Empire and the Persians were fighting, or not the Persian, and the Byzantine Empire. They never were able to conquer it. The Arabs came across and demolished them in like seconds.
Damn.
The eternal enemy of the Romans for centuries got crushed just like that when the Arabs showed up.
Double check this.
Let's do some reviews. Do you want to talk about underwater pyramids that have been discovered? Do you want to save that for next time? Do you want to look at that? Or we could just do a review. We haven't done like a video review.
I found underwater pyramids in Minecraft.
Oh, there are.
So what does that mean?
Well, there's also the desert pyramids and there's the jungle pyramids. To be honest, I've
seen them all.
I think Minecraft just kind of thought it would be funny to have these little pyramids.
I know it's Minecraft, but I'm like, but I mean, the developers of Minecraft, are they taking something like that into consideration?
I mean, they could be. Let me show you this though. So the pyramid that we're looking at right here was found in the mid-Atlantic and has been underwater for about 20,000 years.
Wait, in the mid-Atlantic.
Mm-hmm.
So is it near anything? So is it near any island?
Listen.
What are they called out there?
Yes, it is kind of near an island, but I'll get to that in a second.
Because there's a whole mid-Atlantic community. There's like islands.
So considering this is the time around the last ice age where glaciers was melting at a peak of about 2,000 years prior, whatever civilization, human or not, that was around before the ice age is responsible for building them. So while the Portuguese Navy still hasn't determined the origins, many might question why this hasn't been reported.
Oh yeah, it's in Portuguese waters probably.
Any sooner than late 2012. So this has been around since 2012. We've known about it. What? And no one's been talking about it. The Portuguese Navy's been out there.
So who said it was 20,000 years old?
Certainly the NOAA, who studies volcanic activity in the area of the pyramid, would have discovered the pyramid through sonar imaging, and the NOAA has yet to come across it. Let's see.
They haven't found it, but Portugal did. Is that what I'm hearing?
To further support the idea that this pyramid could have been built by different civilizations, archaeologists from the Portuguese Association of Archaeology Research have recently discovered evidence on Pico Island that suggests. I think that was the island that was closest to the pyramid. When I was reading the whole article,
Pico Island.
Suggest their belief that humans existed in the Azores.
Yeah, those are the islands I was talking about.
Regions before the arrival of the Portuguese thousands of years ago. As of today, there is still no explanation for who created the rock art found on the island. So it looks like there is, some sort of civilization.
Yeah, that's like island. Easter Island looking stuff.
Yeah. That's pretty much the whole article. This is talking about the actual location. So if you want the literal location, underwater, let's see. Talking about who discovered it. According to the claims, the structure is said to be perfectly squared and oriented by the cardinal points. So clearly this is a natural formation. current estimates obtained using GPS digital technology say it's about 60 meters with a base of 8,000 square meters.
Oh, square meters? Okay.
But like, you know, a pretty decent sized pyramid still, nonetheless.
It's like what? 2.5 by 2 point something by 2 point something. Wow.
So I think these other pictures aren't loading, but I'll put up better pictures when I find it. This is one of the pictures, though. This one is loading. This is one of the ones. What I also came across, I was actually trying to find out more information.
Dude, I don't know.
No, that one might be fake. I don't know. But
that looks like the Pyramid of Giza.
There's other images, too. Anyway, the other images aren't loading. I swear to you, I actually came across this a long time ago.
Let me see.
We just hadn't recorded an episode recently. What I came across, too, though...
the Navy are investigating a...
So, I will tell you that that's not just one article, is what the point I was going to get to. I looked up online to try to find out more information because, like you, I felt a little skeptical about it. And I did find other images and other articles that were talking about it. But what I also came across is
I believe
there was
pyramids,
one in
but that image was bullshit.
There's one in Japan as well. There's an underwater pyramid that's in like right off the coast of Japan.
Really?
Because I was looking for this one and I came across that and I was like, that's super interesting. So all of a sudden, you know, what I'm being faced with is this idea that like during the last ice age, obviously there was more area that was land and not underwater, and I think there are pyramids that were built.
Some history I don't know anything about, I guess, is really Japanese. I know a little bit.
Yeah.
Like samurai culture, and then.
But why would there be a pyramid off the shore of Japan, but not on the mainland, right? Isn't that kind of weird too?
Right. Why is it out
like, did it get destroyed? That would be my idea, is maybe it was there in Japan and someone just came along and destroyed it at some point. Like, that's kind of weird. I don't know. And anyway, this one, basically I found the one that's off of that like Portuguese island. What I found was there's two types of articles. No one's doubting that there's rock formations, but that's the thing. Some articles are calling it a pyramid. Some are calling it a rock formation. But my argument is, how is it perfectly squared? 90-degree angles do not happen naturally. Wait. And how is it based on the cardinal points? That's some weird
the north
happenstance. Northeast, southwest.
Just like the other one is, right?
Huh? So if this so let's be clear. Whoa. What we have, this article is claiming it's a pyramid. The other articles, we're just calling it a rock structure. So if we have an underwater rock structure, how is it perfectly on the cardinal points? That's weird, random happenstance. But okay, maybe that happens. What does not happen in nature, ask a geologist, is 90-degree angles. You don't have squares and right angles in nature. That just does not happen with rock formations.
Definitely not rocks. Maybe it hardly ever happens.
So even if we don't call it a pyramid, there's a perfectly squared object that's based on the cardinal points out in the middle of the ocean, somewhere near these Portuguese islands, and it sort of does like a bit of a pyramid shape.
Mm-hmm. Well, even if the base is a square, that's 4 right angles.
Yeah,
you know.
So clearly it was built, is my point. That's my whole point.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like, pyramid or not, you can call whatever you want. It's an underwater structure.
How did it get underwater? Did the water move into that area, or did that piece of land fall into the water?
Well, it could be both, right? It could be either one or both. But what it's saying is, the belief is that it's from the last ice age. So it would have actually been above land or above water. And then as the glaciers melted, did it say how deep it was? I actually don't remember if it said or not. I don't know.
Because that would matter a lot. If it's not super deep, if it's a few hundred feet, 1,000 feet.
Have you heard of the supposed underwater location of Atlantis? That's like
where?
Near like, I don't know, like Jamaica or Cuba or something like that in like the Caribbean.
In the Caribbean?
Oh yeah, just like out there in the Caribbean. So what it is there's actually the system of roads. Like think almost like cement, concrete looking.
Sure.
And literally some of it kind of starts turning into like a bit of a spiral formation. When people saw it, they were like, that's Atlantis right there. But if you watch that show that we talked about previously, that what was it, Ancient Apocalypse?
Mm-hmm.
He actually goes out there and investigates it. And if you follow it, it goes up on land. There's an island out there, and it literally is just a road. Because then all of a sudden, if you think about where the water levels would have been back during the last ice age, that would have all been land. It wouldn't have been underwater. And that's pretty deep. When I was looking at that, that was like a good, I don't know.
So hold on. During
40 meters down, 40 meters down. There was a lot of ice, though, if you think about it.
So
during the last
after
ice
the
age,
after the
sheets
ice
were.
age, water levels rose because of melt.
Yes. Yes, a lot. So think, for example, you know how we talk about there was
So it must have been
the ice sheet,
crazy.
the ice sheet that connected Alaska to Russia.
Uh-huh.
But do you know how thick that ice sheet was?
Miles.
100 miles
100 miles
of
deep.
ice.
Right.
And then it continued into Canada. So that's where the argument of, even if people crossed the land bridge that was created by that, there would have been no food. There would have been no plants. There would have been
desolate.
no animals. It was ice, 100 miles of ice covering
For
Canada.
there to be 100 miles of
We're
ice,
talking
the
about-
temperature has to be so fucking
We're talking
low
about Russia
for so long.
and Canada being 100 miles thick of ice, and all of a
Right.
sudden all of that melts and back into the ocean. That's why there
No,
was
that
so
took
much
like
water.
10,000 years or some shit.
Well,
to
and the speculation is maybe it kind of got jumped a little bit by an asteroid impact.
Rapid heating,
Because it suddenly caused it all to just instantly melt.
vaporization from a massive heat blast. Right.
But, I mean, that's one area. I mean, if an asteroid hit, okay, maybe you melt all the ice
Sure,
sheet
it
in
raised
Canada.
temperatures,
How are you going to, like,
that's-
what's going on in Russia? What's going on in the other I don't know. That's not
Right.
the argument I'm looking at. Just the point is we do know for a fact that there was 100 miles of ice sheet covering what is now land.
Mhm.
Even today, land. I'm talking about Canada and stuff like that.
Mhm.
100-mile sheet of ice all melted back in the ocean. That's why all of a sudden areas that would have been this massive land mass.
So did it fluctuate
underwater.
back and forth before and after an ice age?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe a little. I don't know. I can tell you, for example, I think Japan might have been connected to the mainland. I know Crete was with the mainland. England was connected with
Yeah, 'cause
Europe.
isn't it the Sea of Japan separates China and Japan?
Mhm.
Or
I think
Mongolia?
now I could be wrong in the Japan one, but I know Crete was. I know England
But it's a
was.
very narrow
And I think there was a
sea.
lot of areas that did actually have little land bridges, and
Oh,
they
yeah.
just don't exist now. Now, what was interesting in that Ancient Apocalypse, talking specifically about that area where this like supposed like Atlantis was, with these road system that we now understand was all above water at the time, now below water, is there's a map from someone, I think like a Portuguese, back around maybe the time of the Renaissance, and it actually shows a big landmass right there. Not what we would see as like Cuba and Jamaica and all these little islands, like one big island.
Oh.
And it would actually make a lot of sense based off of the road network. And what he's thinking is, did he get his map from an older map? Like, was he drawing his map, but he had an older map to go off of that was maybe based off of an older map and off of an older map? And maybe at some point someone did actually
You meet the right guy.
circumnavigate. Someone did circumnavigate and actually do the cartography to map the whole globe before our modern concept of history.
It'd be so hard to get across the ocean if you didn't have the right craft.
The other thing that was
Deadly.
interesting is, I don't know if it was the same map or a different map, but
But then
someone
how
had
would you know? How would you know what the fuck is going on unless you were so dedicated to like studying the stars, which they probably
Well, I
were
mean, they
back
could have,
then.
because again, if you're going off of his theory, we're talking about there was an advanced civilization that had existed, and then they got destroyed during this flooding that happened after the Ice Age, or maybe something else destroyed them, but it was around that same time. The Ice Age is ending.
What time?
Of about 10, 11,000 years ago.
Okay.
All of a sudden, you have all this evidence for all these ancient pieces of structures and stuff like that from about 11 or 12,000 years ago. And then all of a sudden, 10,000 years ago, there's just no more civilization building. And then it's like everything gets started over in Mesopotamia.
Mm-hmm.
And then Egypt. And then China. And all these other places. Right? Kind of weird.
It's very weird.
So the same map has an part of it where it's South America. We're talking like right on the very tip. But instead of ending, it actually continues all the way down. And it's almost like it's a picture of Antarctica. but massive. We're thinking Antarctica if it was all the way up to South America.
Right.
And what people assume looking at it is they're like, oh, he just like ran out of space and kind of started drawing the map down this way because he couldn't keep going down. But what's weird about it is it's like, okay, well, if that was even the case,
after the last ice age,
because even if that was
would have been massive,
and that's his point,
stupidly massive.
That's his point.
Yeah.
Because even if he had continued doing Latin America, it would have still ended about here, not gone all the way.
Antarctica would have touched fucking Australia.
But that's what they're thinking. Is this? They think someone actually had a map that they were drawing down from previous maps. Who knows how many generations of maps?
Right.
That was showing what the world looked like during the last ice age.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy to think?
Because
what it is it's
today.
really someone that was actually just like, this is what the Americas look like. They were trying to show like the most current map that we have. Now, ironically, they didn't even have Australia on the map. So it's like, it really was like a modern European idea of like Asia, Africa, Europe, North and South America. But it's almost like it was that, but like maybe the Ice Age. Because all of a sudden you have these bigger land masses. You have like Antarctica all the way up to like Argentina.
Damn, it's crazy how
yeah,
everything is so localized too. I have no idea about the history of like Australia.
Hardly. I actually checked out a book from the library at UNM when I was going to school there because I was just curious.
Like, what happened?
Just started reading about the history of Australia.
What's the story with Australia?
You know what I hated is the first 6 pages was everything before the Europeans showed up, and then it was like a 300-page book.
No,
and
I was talking about before.
And
Europe.
I was literally what I did.
But of course, who would have?
I read the first 6 pages, and then I went to the end and I looked at like further readings, and I was like, who has a book on other stuff? What did the first 6 pages draw from? So I had to literally do that.
It was just books
that was like talking about that because I was like, I know we don't have a written history, but I know we have archaeology, we have anthropology, we have maybe some sort of like verbal history. People pass down history in so many different ways. I wanna know what the fuck happened in Australia with the original Aborigines. What were they doing?
I think it's a lot like the Pacific Islanders and like Guam, Easter Island, whatever. Where the fuck is Easter Island? Is that Atlantic or Pacific?
That's Pacific.
Yeah.
Technically, it's part of Chile.
I think New Zealand specifically has a lot of tribal stuff like that. I don't know. I can't even think of the names of it, but it's almost like Hawaii and Samoa.
You know what's interesting about a lot of those? When I was reading the book Collapse by Jared Diamond, are you familiar with any of his stuff? Guns, Germs, and Steel, Collapse. He had a couple other books. He is actually a geographer.
Oh.
That's his whole thing. I think he teaches at like UCLA or something like that, and he's a professor of geography.
That'd be fun.
And what he does is...
That's a great job right there.
And, for the longest time, I was literally like, geography, and no offense, you were going to school for it, for a while. I was like, this feels like a waste of a fucking degree. Why would I go to school for that? And now that I've read all 3 of his books...
Unless you do one thing,
series,
it is, yeah.
And I'm literally like, no, but it makes so much sense because I finally went back and reread Guns, Germs, and Steel. I kind of like read it and just skimmed through it, but I actually really went back through and read it, and like, it makes so much sense when you understand how geography has impacted the world. It makes history make sense.
So that's the cool thing that I liked about geography was studying it, and that's fun to be like. It helps everything make sense.
Have you read Guns, Germs, and Steel at all?
Uh-uh.
You've heard of it though, I assume. Guns, Germs, and Steel.
I think so.
How like it's basically like how the Europeans came over and conquered the Americas.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it.
But his book wasn't just about that. So he does a lot of work out in like New Guinea. I think like Papua New Guinea or something like that. And he had a friend that lives in a hunter-gatherer tribe, a modern day hunter-gatherer tribe. And he's asking him, how did your people do what they've done, but my people are still here?
Mm-hmm.
Right? He's aware of the modern world. He knows what television and smartphones and all this shit is, but he just wants to understand. Like, why is it you guys have guns and technology and we're still using sticks and stones? And he didn't have an answer. He had to think about it. And he spent years, and that's what the combination of that work was. And it was literally looking at stuff like plants. You had certain plants that grew in parts of the world that literally will not grow in other parts of the world. And as a result, you got food cultivation created in Mesopotamia. And in that package, along with animals, could then be taken to Egypt, could then be taken to other parts of the world. but it wouldn't work in other. So if you think about Latin America developed writing. They domesticated animals. They actually invented the wheel. But the problem is you have the like Aztecs and the Mayans over here. And then you have a long area which you can't have much cultivation of plants. And then you have Peru, where they have this advanced civilization. And they were cut off from each other. They didn't know each other existed. And if they did, there was so little trickle of stuff. I think there's evidence of some things, like maybe chocolate or like, you know, maybe an animal being able to make it. But it's just so hard. There's so much. Shit. And that's because that's the north-south axis. Right. Versus if you're thinking Europe and Asia, as he calls it in the book, Eurasia.
But that's like human limitation.
That's the east-west
based
axis.
Off of the environment.
And it's so much easier because it's the same climate. When you're going east to west, it is the same climate. When you're going north to south, the climate changes so drastically. And as a result, the Americas got totally fucked when the Europeans showed up. Because also, if you think about it, the animals that they had or did not have. Because Europeans and Asians grew up their societies around animals, we were introduced to disease. Most of our diseases, if we're being honest, come from domesticated animals. So all of a sudden, we show up with like a dozen diseases, and they only maybe have one or two. They just had nothing to compete with us with, and their immune systems weren't built for it.
See, that's the cool side of geography, which would be like historical and like cultural geography. But like the modern day use and application of geography is, where do you want to put the shopping center? Which lot is good enough to
wouldn't that just be civil engineering?
Build a fucking Walmart. It's called GIS and engineering. So you use a system. It was like total bullshit.
That's why you didn't want to.
I got turned off right away.
No, that's why you didn't want to do geography anymore.
It was all it all turned into urban planning. That's how you use geography nowadays, is for urban planning. It's like, dude, I don't want to. No.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't either.
Somebody can do that job and they have a great time, but I'm more interested in like historical geography, or I guess just, I don't know.
When I think that's geography. Almost like what I was talking about with why I didn't want to do archaeology, because to me it was like, they don't really let you do archaeology.
It's almost impossible to get out into the field. You have to like plan it a year in advance,
and you have to have somewhere to store it.
Pay a bunch of money.
Get permission.
So you're be the one to hold the brush, and then somebody else is going to take it. It's going to go somewhere else. You'll never see it again. It's probably like a whole weird process, you know. It's not like Indiana Jones at all.
And that's where I think that's where you were coming from with your geography. You thought it would be like, oh, let's like learn about all these cultures and these histories and how they're interrelated and how like that's caused this or that. And then you're like, what?
But then I started to think about an urban planner. I'm like, yeah, maybe I could design a city. No. Developer is going to come up to you and be like, where do we build our shopping mall? That's it.
Yeah. Because that just sounds like civil engineering to me, if anything.
It was like, they call it urban planning a lot, yeah.
And if anything, I have a lot of friends that want to go into architectural design, and it's like, you'll probably never make money, just be a civil engineer.
And a lot of it seemed outdated. Like in the 60s, geography was probably lit. But now, it's already been done.
Yeah.
It's all been built.
Well, and there's nothing to discover. Geography would have been like something before, like, you know, Google Earth.
Oh yeah, all the maps have been made.
All that.
You can look at Mars on fucking Google Earth. Like, you know what I mean?
There's really nothing to do now. Yeah.
It's just different. I just thought it was fascinating. I was like, I just had a fun time learning about geography, all the different modes of it.
Yeah.
But I was like, I can't make a job with this.
You know, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, it's like you're born too late to be like an explorer.
Yes.
In like the period of like.
So I could have been a
pre-colonialism, like, or even colonialism during that period. And you're born too early to be an explorer in the sense of space.
Dude, if I could have been an explorer out in the Amazon jungle, making charts and like one of the first cartographers, you know? Like that's
right.
Geography would have been
like,
awesome.
You're born too late for that, but you're too early for like space geography
or even aviation. That had a huge role in geography.
I'm sure.
Just for the first time ever.
Yeah.
And then they had to come up with the I can't even think of what it's called now. But the maps that show you the elevation for mountains.
Oh, I literally
You know
know
what
what
I'm
you're
talking
talking about, but
about.
I don't remember what that's called.
I forget the name of it. But.
Well, you know what's been interesting with aviation lately actually has been with archaeology using like LiDAR and stuff like that. Being able to actually like just pop it down and see
I was going to mention that.
What's under all these trees or what's under the ground, what's under this water right here. And we've just been discovering so much. Like there's a Machu Picchu that's 3 times bigger than Machu Picchu out in the jungles of Peru.
Right.
And we've only excavated a third of it, and it's already the size of Machu Picchu.
I think there could definitely still be modern day Indiana Jones. Because you can go in Mexico.
I think so. Well, God, there's still tribes out there that have like never really interacted with modern humans. They're just still doing their thing.
But with LiDAR, I think it's uncovering dope shit. To where
maybe we can find some underwater pyramids.
I had a period when I was an adolescent where I was like, I was very cynical. I was like, archaeology is dead. Everything's been discovered. You can't go and...
Oh, God, yeah.
I don't know. When I was a teenager, I was like, they've already found all the dinosaur bones. They've already found everything. You know, you get cynical about everything. But now I'm like, in the jungles, with LiDAR, in the oceans, like, dude, I bet we've hardly scratched the surface. In terms of like uncovering...
what have we all...
The rest of human history.
What, like 20% of the ocean or something like that? Like a... Maybe
probably less.
Yeah.
Probably less. There's so much square footage. It's stupid.
And if we go back to what we're talking about with the whole ice age, maybe there's so much more underwater that we just don't even know.
Yeah.
It's all just there. We might discover like a whole new civilization underwater. You heard anything about
Cameron is like the only person that can fucking see some shit, and that's it.
Have you heard about Lemuria?
Lemuria?
No. It's like this like underwater subcontinent or continent.
Oh, maybe.
I think it like connects like
wait.
I think it's like between like
what's the classifications
India
for that?
And well, India would be a subcontinent. I think Lemuria is a continent. Like I think it's big enough, but it's like roughly I think between like India and like Australia.
Wait, is it above water?
No, it's underwater.
Underwater?
Yes.
At a certain depth?
I don't know what the depth.
There's like a shelf,
pretty
like a continental
underwater,
shelf,
pretty far underwater.
But it's not seafloor.
But there's this concept now that's been going around and actually gaining a lot of traction that Lemuria was an ancient civilization. Now I'm just calling it based off of the land, but we're going to call it like a Lemuria civilization. I was watching this video and it was talking about, speculating it could have been between 50,000 to 500,000 people living on this continent, and that they had this advanced technology. Hence, maybe this is one of those civilizations that was now underwater from that last ice age, and then went out and was like, let me teach you about math and science, and to all these different cultures, right? These cultural bringers that we are coming across, these weird similarities in all these cultures. Maybe it was someone like that. So there's this concept too.
Wait. Before the Ice Age?
Well, during the Ice Age or before, yeah.
Okay, so let's just say before an Ice Age and during.
There was a whole civilization.
But the thing is
the speculation.
So after an Ice Age, a certain civilization could experience catastrophe. They could be flooded out. Right?
But I think it was more than that. I think there's some people speculating that they were like in a war. And then also on top of that, and now we're getting flooded.
And is that happening on a pretty quick basis, or did it still take a couple thousand years to get flooded out?
I don't really know. I don't know.
Because I'm wondering if, like, let's say before an Ice Age, there's these civilizations thriving like a motherfucker, right? And Ice Age screwed it up.
The issue, too, is there hasn't really been any archaeologists that want to go down and actually look at the Lemurian continent that's underwater. So even if there was anything there, no one's bothered to go look. So right now, even though a lot of people
Jim Cameron
feel like there hasn't been anyone to actually scientifically prove it. So that's been part of the problem.
So how come people named James go by Jim?
Why do people go by Dick? that doesn't.
And they're
really make
Richard
sense.
or Dick.
Right? That one makes less sense to me. At least Jim and James is like the same letter.
But yeah, like Rich or Dick is the same name. It's the same person, right?
Doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I just had to throw that one out there.
Random side tangent.
Who the fuck name is Rich and Dick? You rich Dick. Okay.
I feel like now it's like less socially accepted to go by Dick though.
Right. It was definitely an older, like a 40s,
if anyone
50s.
goes by Dick still, like they're old.
Dick Van Dyke. Yeah, if your name's
like a boomer,
Dick,
you're
a boomer. Nobody's been named Dick in the last 10 years.
No. You want to wrap? Is that good?
Yeah, I think we're ready to go.
Okay, well, make sure to like and subscribe.
Love you guys. Don't name your kids Dick.
If you guys want to know more on anything we mentioned in this video, just leave a comment.
Comment down below. Tell us what we said right, what we said wrong. Tell us what you want to see next time.
Peace.